Morning, Comrade Chairperson. Good morning.
I'm trying to check. DG, good morning. And the team?
Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning to the members. Good morning.
Okay, who did I miss? Did I miss anyone from the colleagues? And DM mute. DM, stop complaining and mute your microphone. Okay. Chileka, can we have the agenda on the screen? Okay, colleagues, can I get this is the agenda?
Recording in progress.
Can I get a mover and a seconder for the adoption of this agenda for today? Miss Jens. Honorable Brian, your microphone is on.
Yes, Chairperson. Yes, Chairperson, if I could just raise something before we confirm the agenda. We had a meeting a couple of weeks back where the climate change bill was discussed. I unfortunately was out of the meeting for that period of time, and Honourable Weber was filling in. And there were some comments raised by Honourable Singh around how we take the bill forward and workshop it, etc. I know we are approving the agenda for today's meeting, and I will certainly propose that we accept that. But I would just want to find out if there are any plans to workshop the climate change bill during this term, or if we can add it to the agenda for the next term, so that we are able to follow through with that. I think it's very important that we ensure that the committee has a proper opportunity to workshop the bill clause by clause. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Can I hear the other members? Do you want a workshop as proposed for the bill? It's a proposal for the workshop for the bill.
Chairperson, it's Mary Weber. Chair, I would propose that we do have a workshop, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hear the other colleagues?
I'll second on my colleague Henry Weber and Dave Brown.
DG, are you able to workshop the members on the bill? Let's say next term, because this will be taking you off guard. We'll create space with the team, set aside maybe 3 hours. I'm putting you on the spot.
Chairperson, I believe it is possible. Obviously, as a department, we would then need to be very clear in terms of the program and prepare accordingly so that we can assess the members, taking them through clause by clause and clarifying the bill as it stands. But I think I will then have to, I think my superior is here, DM, and also the minister. I think then we can come back as a department after that consultation to give you a concrete feedback. But in principle, I think it's something that is possible. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. So definitely we'll have to get a slot in the next term. the way
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And I propose that we accept the agenda for today. Thank you.
Can I have a seconder to that effect?
Seconded, Chair.
You seconding. I've got a challenge with my bandwidth. I hope you'll forgive me for not putting my video on. Do you allow me to do that? Colleagues?
I'm seconding for the adoption of the agenda. It's Gancho.
Gancho supported. Okay. We should be here latest by lunchtime. I don't think we're going to stay here indefinitely. Feeling which I will ask somebody to take over because myself and the minister, we have some businesses we need to attend to from our NGO from 2 o'clock. If that is okay with members. Then, having said that, today we are meeting to get a briefing on the master plan for the commercial forestry sector in our country for the period 2020 to 2025. We believe the commercial forestry sector in South Africa is important for many compelling reasons. For example, forest products contribute to at least 4.5% to the total manufacturing in the industry in the country, thereby making it among the top 5 sectors within the manufacturing industry. Export earnings have almost increased threefold, providing a positive trade balance of close to 10 billion in less than a decade. And the forestry sector contributes almost 25% to the GDP of agriculture, which we all know that it's a key driver of economic growth in our country. However, colleagues, what is very important for us as public representatives is that much of the forestry operations are rural-based, which makes the sector a significant contributor to rural economics and social well-being. And then as one goes through the presentation, then one also note the estimate upon which the forestry master plan was based, which indicates that the commercial forestry sector supported some 700,000 livelihoods. It is further stated in the master plan that the sector could result in as much as 50% Black and community ownership of land available for plantations if ongoing land reform program is expedited and effectively implemented. The other issue that we need to continue to engage with our agriculture counterparts with this regard. There are matters of all of them are matters of great interest to us, especially if you look at thoroughly at the objectives of this forestry managed master plan, which include encouraging sector growth, investment, job creation, and competitiveness. Colleagues, beside the assessment of the roles of different players in the implementation of the forestry master plan, I think all of us here as members of this committee, we have got a responsibility to keenly monitor and evaluate the progress in the sector growth, especially with regard to investment and job creation, which are the things that actually matter to the poor of the poorest that we represent. I hope, Honorable Deputy Minister, we know you are a responsible person for the forestry portfolio. might not be expecting too much from the department if colleagues ask questions about the progress in the implementation of the master plan, considering the time frame of the master plan from 2020 to 2025. Now we are in 2022. This time frame indicates that the implementation of the master plan is well underway or it's proceeding fully, and hence it's proper for us to expect some tangible results from you, Deputy Minister and team. The other issue that I felt we need to deal with today, we'll need to look at our draft public hearings program for the National Forest and Wildfire Amendment Act Bill, and also consider the committee report on the amendment of the Nairobi Convention, so that then it can be submitted to the House before it rises if need be. So these are the issues that one feels we need to deal with. And then, having said that, I need to welcome you, Deputy Minister, and the management team, including the colleagues, members of the committee, and all other interested parties that are in our midst. Then over to you, Deputy Minister and team.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning again to you and all members. As you can see that I keep on changing the position where I am. I'm not at my place today. I'm in Cape Town and I'm struggling to get a suitable place because of the network. Can I then request, Chairperson, that I switch off my camera? Otherwise, I will struggle. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thanks a lot. Chairperson, before I then start with the business of today, maybe as indicated by Gigi, let me also then assure the members that the workshop for that specific legislation, it is possible. As a person who has been in different ministries, we did have such requests from other ministries, and it was possible then for us to give that workshop to members. So, Honorable Brian, it will be done. We will just be led by the chair when required. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Today, Chairperson will be then presenting to yourself, the Portfolio Committee, our forestry sector master plan and its implementation as approved by Cabinet, as we have correctly indicated that it was approved by Cabinet in November 2020 during the COVID period. Chairperson, I also need to indicate that during this implementation stage, there were some challenges experienced as expected, of course. And we will then be highlighting those areas when the department officials are taking the members through. As a result of that, the minister is then in the process of appointing an expert on a 12-month contract to assist with the technicality that has been identified at the implementation stage. This expert was part of the external forces who were part of the establishment of the forestry master plan. He will then hand over that skill after 12 months to an officials that will be identified by myself and the minister during the implementation stage. Ms. Pumeza Nodada, who is the acting DDG responsible for forest management, has been part of this process from the onset. She and her team will then take us through. Maybe I need also to indicate that there was additional information that was sent yesterday late. As you are aware that I've been out of the country, then when I went through the presentation, I then discovered that there was some information that was left out, but it's not a big issue, it's just smaller information, which I think is very important for the members to have those. I think when Ms. Nodada is taking us through with the presentation that you have, she will just indicate the difference between the information that was sent and what was added in those few pages that we corrected. Chairperson, as we have correctly said, that because of the nature of the master plan, as we are aware that many stakeholders are involved at the implementation. It is then divided into 6 focus areas, and each and every focus area has got a chairperson. Of those 6, 4 are being chaired by the department's officials, and 1 is being chaired by DTI, that is a department, the sister department, and the other one is being chaired by the industry. Therefore, Chairperson, I think without any waste of time, I'm aware of the meeting that you will be attending, NGO meeting that will be attending at 2 o'clock. I can then hand over to Ms. Chabalala as per protocol, so that the department can quickly take us through the master plan. I thank you very much, honorable members and you, Chairperson. Ms. Chabalala?
Thank you very much, DM, and good morning, Honorable Chairperson and members. I'm not going to waste time. DM has covered the critical aspects around the plan that we will share with the committee today, and also what has been done in terms of the progress on the implementation thus far. And just to also indicate that we are trying to fast track the process of ensuring that the PMO capacity is indeed in place, so that then that PMO capacity can assess the governance structures, but also pulling together all the stakeholders, including the industry and other departments, in ensuring that they do play a part in the implementation of the master plan. Without delay, let me immediately hand over to the acting DDG to take the committee through the presentation we've prepared. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Yes, DDG, you can proceed. The presentation is on the screen.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. Good morning to the members. Good morning, DM, DG, and colleagues. Can I have the next slide, please? As indicated by the Deputy Minister and the DG, we are coming to the Portfolio Committee to brief the members on the Commercial Forestry Master Plan. Then the next 2 slides, the next slide is on the table of contents, and then the next 2 slides are the acronyms that we are using on the presentation. Then in terms of the background, it's a bit slow on my side, so I'm not sure if, I think it's on slide 5, 6. Sorry. Okay, in terms of the background, I'll just continue. Maybe it's my system that is a bit slow. In terms of the background, the issue of the master plans was initiated a while back within the country, and when looking at the successes that were attributed to the other sectors, it was felt that within the forestry sector, due to some challenges that we're experiencing and due to the importance of this sector, there was a need to have a master plan. And in this regard, there is collaboration between ourselves as government, with this department as the lead department, industry and labor, and then we all came together to develop the master plan. So the master plan is also aligned to the public-private growth initiative, which is essentially a growth and investment plan for the sector. On the next slide, in developing the master plan, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, through the University of Cape Town, assisted us in terms of appointing a service provider. And this service provider was overseen by a working group, which was comprised by, I'm on slide 7, which was comprised by the affected government departments, such as Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, the DTIC itself, the Department of Science and Innovation, the public enterprises, and others. There was also involvement of the industry, the National Forest Advisory Council, which advises the Minister on forestry issues, and also the Forest Sector Charter Council, which is responsible for the overseeing of the transformation in the sector. Then the working group was overseen by the Executive Oversight Committee, which was chaired by our Deputy Minister, which provided oversight and guidance to the working group during the development process. Then on the next slide, we mentioned the main goals of the master plan, which includes 5 commitments, that is slide number 8, where the 5 commitments are investment, where there is commitment of about 24.9 billion, which will then lead to creation of about 100,000 jobs. And through this, we also looked at measures that we can use to open up new investment and job opportunities, where there is ensuring that we support effective reskilling programs to ensure that there is a capacity. And then linked to that would be the inclusivity, which is linked to the Forestry Chapter undertakings to ensure that there is transformation and expansion. And then lastly, to ensure that there is competitiveness within the sector, where there is improvement of the timber yield, the recovery rates, but also there is improvement in terms of research and development. Then the next slide focuses on the main areas that the master plan focuses on, where we have a focus area 1, which deals with expansion of the primary resource, maintenance and protection. And this key focus area forms the basis of the growth, because if we do not have the primary resources, which is our fiber, then it is going to be impossible to have the jobs or the investment that we require. So as indicated, that this is a collaboration between ourselves as government and industry and labor. There are different leaders within those focus areas that chair these different focus areas. So focus area 1 is chaired by the department, and then focus area 2, which deals with the transformation of the sector, is chaired by the department as well. Key focus area that deals with value chain, processing and value addition within the sector is chaired by the DTIC. And then the 4th focus area deals with illegal timber and related criminal activities, which looks at what should be done to try and curb the illegal activities that are affecting the sector. And this is chaired by the department. The key focus area 5 deals with research, development, innovation, human resource and skills development, where we're trying to make sure that as we expand in the sector, transform the sector, there is research that is done to support all of these areas, and this is chaired by the department as well. And then the last focus area, which are the key inhibitors, which looks at issues that affect the sector, and if they are not resolved, could pose a lot of challenges, and this one is chaired by the industry. On the next slide, it's just a schematic representation of how all of these key focus areas are aligned. And the 6 key focus areas would then work together and be managed through the DFFE Secretariat, which is the project team, which then ensures that each of these focus area task teams have secretarial support. They have their meetings, they do follow-ups in terms of the targets that they've set. And then through the DFF, the secretariat, then there's reporting through the operational MANCO, which is made up of industry, labor, and government. And then there is reports that are received by the MANCO from the focus area task teams. And then MANCO prepares reports to the EOC, which is then chaired by the Deputy Minister. This is where the CEOs of the different companies would meet with the Deputy Minister to look at implementation, to look at what challenges are there and how these could be resolved. And then the EOC also has the linkage to the PPGI. Then on the next slide, one of the things that the master plan did was an implementation plan and a monitoring and evaluation framework, which is then a basis for the work that we are currently doing. The framework links the goals, deliverables, indicators, and their achievements, and also looks at means of verification to make sure that whatever is being presented by the different task teams, there is some verification that is done. So in terms of the framework, it relies heavily on data collection and analysis so that we can have those different reports. Then the next slide, slide 12, just gives an example of how these reports would look like in the future when we have collected all the data, when we have all the capacity to do the analysis. So for instance, if we were to look at the first indicator, which is the rand value of investment, we have a target of 24.96 billion. So that is how the report would look like. And then it will look at what has been invested and what will be remaining. So then in terms of the data notes, it will then give a breakdown of who has invested in what, and so that when the reports are presented, it is easy to follow which sector or which company or which area is getting such investment. So even for the jobs, it would be the same way, and all the other different indicators where each of the areas would have a breakdown in terms of what has been done, what has not been done, and what kind of information is available to substantiate the information that we are presenting. Then on slide 13, maybe we can go to slide 14, where we are just giving an overview in terms of what we have done so far. As the Deputy Minister and DG have indicated, the master plan was approved in November of 2020, and we have gone on to make sure that the Secretariat is established, and a year one implementation plan was developed. And then through the focus area task teams, operational plans with quarterly targets were also developed. And these are being used for tracking the work that is being done. On the next slide, in terms of our assessment at this stage, we have a total of 60 deliverables for year one. And about 53% have been achieved, 33% are in progress, and 14% are off target. And in addition to those 60 targets, then there's additional 2 targets that we have termed the cross-cutting key targets of the master plan, because these are the driving forces, which is the investment and the jobs. For this year, for the first year, we had a target of investment of 6.35 billion, and about 11 billion has already been invested by the industry. And we had a target of 24,000 jobs to be created, and we have now managed to create just over 5,000, about 5,600 jobs in total between ourselves as government and the industry. And this is mainly because the main drivers of job creation those targets are not fully implemented. And as they are fully implemented, it will be easier to then achieve this one-off job creation. Now, in terms of key focus area 1, which would be slide 17, the next slide, please. Okay. What we've done is we've taken the deliverables as they are on the implementation plan that was approved by Cabinet, and then through the key focus area task teams developed annual targets and quarterly targets. So what we're going to present today is looking at what the deliverable is, what the annual target is, and the quarterly targets, and how far we've come in terms of trying to achieve the work that we're supposed to do. Now, in terms of the first one, which deals mainly with afforestation, where we are looking at making sure that the land that is supposed to be available for new afforestation is targeted and is assessed and is available for afforestation. One of the things that needed to be done there was the identification of the land parcels in terms of contributing to the broader figure of the 151,000 hectares that we need to achieve as a country. So in terms of this target, we have achieved this in terms of 28,000 hectares has been identified and is being in a process of going through an EIA where there will be an environmental practitioner that will be appointed. Then the second deliverable, which according to the implementation is Deliverable 7, 8. And I must say that some of the deliverables, the reason we move, for instance, from 1 to 7 is because maybe the second deliverable 2 is only starting from year 2. So we only picked out those deliverables that are only related to year 1. So in terms of Deliverable 7 and 8, where we are looking at the management models for recapitalization of state plantations, which is mainly our plantations, where we are trying to make sure that there is a support in terms of management of these plantations. There we needed to appoint a service provider to assist us with a feasibility study on the public-private partnership model. So the bid was advertised and evaluation has been done. But what we've picked up is that there's some issues with non-responsiveness of the suppliers, and some further verification needs to be done. And this is currently being done within the department. And SCM is assisting us in prioritizing this project so that we can get the feasibility done. On the next slide. This one is also part of the recapitalization of our plantations. One of the things that the Department of Water and Sanitation needs to do in terms of the implementation or enforcement of their National Water Act is verification of plantations to ascertain water use, because we are a stream flow reduction activity, and therefore we need a water use license for us to function as a plantation forestry. So there is some verification that they need to do to make sure that the boundaries are still kept as they are, so that they can be able to calculate issues of water use and the legality of the plantations. So in this one, there was supposed to be some information provided, which was then provided for the verification. And then upon discussion, there was a realization that the kind of information that Water Affairs required was not necessarily the information that we have. And due to the capacity issues that we had at the time, we could not produce the information. We have now, as a department, appointed a GIS specialist, specifically within the branch, who is now working with the Department of Water and Sanitation in terms of sourcing the right information so that they can now commence with the verification of the plantations. And this is going to be addressed in the new financial year. Then on the next slide, The next slide deals with issues related to identification of possible ownership situations, so that when we have those expression of interests for the communities, we can make sure that communities are able to participate in plantation management. So in this one, we're looking at this as part of our APP, where we are handing out plantations to communities. So this involves entering into community forestry agreements with communities. We have identified Limpopo and Eastern Cape for this financial year. The work has been done, whereby for the Eastern Cape, for instance, the community forestry agreements have both been submitted to the Minister for approval, and one of them has already been approved. We had challenges in Limpopo where there were some community issues that arose, and with the assistance of COGTA and the Agriculture, Land and Rural Development, they have assisted us in resolving those issues. The final resolution meeting for this community is scheduled for the end of this month, so that then the agreement can be signed. The agreement has already been drafted. It has already been submitted to legal services for vetting. So we're just waiting for the final resolution for this process to be finalized. Then on the next slide, the listing out of the Western Cape in terms of a lease model, so that those plantations can be managed. In this one, we had some challenges with regards to SCM processes in terms of commencing with the expression of interests. But at the same time, we experienced some land invasions in some areas of the Western Cape. We have now, through the courts, gotten some assistance in terms of eviction orders, and we're working with the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure on the matter. We are also working with the other stakeholders in the Western Cape to deal with this. We have now also developed an action plan that will then assist us in terms of dealing with these invasions, to try and also do some collaborations with the municipalities, but also have some engagements with the communities to try and see if there isn't a way of a better management of the area, so that it can go back into forestry for economic development. And also the plantations in the area, we will also continue with the listing out of those plantations through the expression of interest, and that has also been prioritized by SCM in the department. And then the next one, in terms of capacity, we have some capacity that we have received that was left over from the previous department when the branch was moving, especially regarding to colleagues that deal with capacity building in terms of skills, and also dealing with research. We've also advertised some posts, and we've had some targeted posts that will assist us with the implementation of the master plan. Some of those have already been filled, and the others are in the process of being filled. The next slide deals with a support in terms of Black ownership, where we needed to develop a predetermined criteria to ensure that workers also benefit from these state plantations when we are dealing with the transfers, and also look at how log supply can be given out to favor historically disadvantaged persons in line with the SCM prescripts. So in this one, we have established a task team to streamline these targets, to ensure and to also ensure that the ownership targets are aligned to the sector code, so that the charter can assist us in terms of tracking this. We have been having a bit of challenges in terms of not receiving the information timeously. But through the Forest Sector Charter Council, we have agreed that through the annual reports that they receive from the different companies, that information will be tracked and we will get those on an annual basis. This is one of the areas that we've highlighted for further discussion and for further assistance with the partners. Then the next slide was the identification of a champion to lead for us to have a biosecurity digital platform. This has been done and the business plan is being developed. Then on the next one, there was an issue about the applications that were submitted. Okay, the initial issue was that in terms of the master plan, it was identified that there could be some challenges with capacity within the Department of Agriculture, Land and Rural Development on processing the applications. But when we went through the process of engaging with the colleagues, we realized that there was an issue with the applications that were not submitted. So the applications have now been submitted, and we have, as a department, have engaged rural development in terms of fast-tracking those applications. And we've also flagged this one as an issue that when we have the forecast discussions at DG to DG level with the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, this is one of the issues that we will raise to make sure that it's on the radar for assistance, so that the industry can have the licenses that they need for processing the work that they need to do in terms of the control agents. Then this slide deals mainly with issues related to integrated fire management, where we were supposed to provide support to fire protection associations. The draft strategy has been developed and is aligned to the fire working group that is now functional. And the next deliverable deals with the conflicting legislation in terms of integrated fire management, where there was a need to establish a colloquium and map out the areas for conflict. Through the engagements with the National Disaster Management Center, we have established that there are no conflicts. And this matter is also addressed within the fire working group to make sure that as the amendments that we are doing on the National Field and Forest Amendment Bill and the work that the National Disaster Management Center is doing on the amendments of their legislation, there are no conflicts that will be picked up. In the next slide, Deliverable 28 and 29 also deals with fires. Deliverable 28 is the amendment of the Fire Amendment Bill, and this has been presented to the Portfolio Committee, and it is now within the process of Portfolio Committee in terms of the work that the committee is currently doing. And then on Deliverable 29, where there was a need to clarify the mandates, engagements have also taken place with the National Disaster Management Center to make sure that there is agreement on the mandates, and this is also the work that the Fire Working Group is taking to make sure that there's alignments. So we've also aligned this deliverable to Deliverable 27. The next deliverable is on capacity development for chief fire officers, which are mainly colleagues within the municipalities. We've engaged with the National Disaster Management Center, and it has been agreed that this will also be aligned to a Deliverable 27 with the work that the Fire Working Group is dealing with. Then in terms of Deliverable 31, where there was an identification that maybe we need to, when we amend the Act, allow for another establishment of a committee, which would be called a National Fire Advisory Committee. Upon discussion with the key focus area 1 and the fire working group, it was agreed that what would probably work best is to strengthen the fire working group to avoid that there's too many structures within this portfolio, and therefore, based on that discussion, the terms of reference were amended and strengthened, and these were adopted by the working group in December of 2021. Then the next deliverable deals with the weather data, where we wanted to review the fire danger rating system that is currently used by the South African Weather Service. Through this process, we have managed to source some funding, and this will now be done through a collaboration between South African Weather Services with the CSIR, and the project will be a 3-year project. And there's currently some contractual arrangements that the two parties are finalizing, so that they can then have a proper action plan that we can then track as well through the fire working group. And then the next slide is on the database, the fire database, Deliverable 33, where we wanted to appoint a service provider for a database to be developed. Funding has been secured through Sanlam, and the project and the service provider has been appointed, and this service provider will also look at ways of how we audit the FPAs, and will also develop a standardized tool for auditing process, and also develop the database for us. And then in terms of supporting communities in terms of job creation, and in recognition that at the time when we were developing the master plan, we were on hard lockdown, and there were already issues that were being picked up, that there's a need to try and support SMMEs for them to be able to create jobs. So the deliverable deals with a proposal that between government and industry, we needed to develop and submit for a stimulus fund. This was done, even though our funding was not approved. We have agreed that we will continue to develop and make sure that joint proposals are developed, are submitted for future funding opportunities. And then lastly, on this key focus area is the issue of agroforestry, which is multiple land use that assists growers in terms of using their land for agricultural purposes whilst they are waiting for their timber to mature. In this one, we wanted to make sure that there is strengthening of the pilots that have been done, and those make sure that they are documented for future use, so that as we move to areas for new afforestation, especially in the Eastern Cape, that information can be used. So we have finalized the plan for the Eastern Cape, and the sites have been identified, and the process of planting will then commence. Then the next key focus area deals with transformation. Slide 28. Okay, I'm going to continue. It's still on 26 here. Then our slide 28 deals with issues related to transformation, where we want to make sure that land claims are expedited. through tracking this by having a quarterly national forums that would sit where all the stakeholders would come in and being led by the Department of Agriculture, Rural Development and Land Reform, where they would be able to provide us with information with regards to what is outstanding and what is being prioritized in terms of land claims. So this work has been done. There's some work in terms of the state-owned plantations that have been identified, where there's a report that 47 claims have been settled since 2019, and that is the list of the claims as received from the department. And then the next slide then further looks at provisioning of post-settlement support, where we need to conclude a memorandum of understanding. This memorandum of understanding has been drafted, and we now need to finalize it. There's been some delays in the finalization because of some competing issues in terms of availability of the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development in finalizing their inputs. So we've already escalated the matter at DG to DG level so that we can then convene a bilateral to address this issue and the other issues that I've mentioned before related to the approval of the applications in the slides before. So this one, we are dealing with it already, and we want to have that MOU finalized so that when we deal with post-settlement support, we can then make sure that there's understanding of roles and responsibilities between the two departments and what kind of support we can provide as this department and rural development. Then on the next slide, we're dealing with blended finance, where we want to make sure that the instrument is instituted. There's work that has been done here, where the working committee has developed the concept document, and there has been potential funding schemes that have been identified, and there is consultation that is currently happening to make sure that funding is available for SMMEs. And then the next slide, Deliverable Six. I just want to say that this deliverable is also linked to the next deliverable, which is Deliverable Seven. So in this one, specifically looks at business-related advisory support programs, where we want to make sure that that support is available and there is a formalization of partnerships between the different role players so that they are able to support the SMMEs. So in this one, we needed to establish a task team where it will then identify those advisory programs, and then linked to the next deliverable that I will talk about, then develop the toolkit. So there was a bit of delay with the establishment of the task team due to the fact that we needed to first agree how we were going to approach Deliverable 6 versus Deliverable 7 so that they are aligned. Otherwise, we would find ourselves that we are more or less doing the same thing, and there's duplication, and we are wasting time and energy, whilst we can just try and maybe combine the two and then have a more holistic approach to the issues. So the task team has now been established, and what we now need to do is the formalization of the partnerships with the different sector partners. Then this Deliverable 7 in slide 32, as I've indicated, this is where we need to develop and update and package the information so that we can have that advisory support to the communities. And as indicated, this is linked to Deliverable 6. We have now looked at maybe we need to look at the development of the toolkit, but at the same time make sure that there is that alignment to the advisory services within the public and the private sector. And these two deliverables will be dealt with together. So what needs to happen now is that as a department, we're following up in terms of making sure that the terms of reference for the establishment of the panel are finalized, so that that panel can start its work, and then it can also oversee the development of the toolkit above, and also align itself with the advisory services in the previous slide. Then one of the things on the next slide, one of the things that we needed to do in the master plan was to make sure that the small growers are supported so that they are certified. This will assist them in terms of being to have access to markets, not just markets within the country, but markets outside of the country, because timber trade outside of the country, they require that you must be certified for you to trade. So we needed then to investigate the certification schemes and make sure that there is a database available, and that the SMMEs are able to participate in these relevant schemes. These have been identified, and there's a report that has been done that highlights what is required and what costs are involved. So we are now in the process of just making sure that these different SMMEs have access to that information, so that they can have a choice of what system they would want to use whenever they want to use them. On the next slide is the matter of descent work. This target only started in the third quarter because we needed to first identify what kind of targets we would need to have for us to make sure that there's descent work. And this is also linked to the job creation work that the different government and industry are involved in. So we then needed to identify what would then be termed descent work. So there is currently consultation that is happening right now in terms of that explanatory document that has been developed. Then on key focus area, which would then be slide 36, which deals with processing. This is the focus area that is led by the DTIC. In this one, we needed to ensure that there's a variety of interventions for support in terms of timber and engineered timber in the built environment. So what needed to happen here was that there is a service provider that needed to be appointed for processing research, where that has been done, where we are trying to make sure that all the processing for the different sectors, especially the sawmilling to offer value addition, is done. Linked to this has been the training sessions for the different areas in designing in timber with the University of Stellenbosch. And there's also been training material that has been developed for mass timber building. So there's additional work that is being done in terms of finalizing the research agenda and strategy for the processing of the work within the sawmilling industry, to make sure that there is expansion in terms of the timber boards and the biorefinery work that needs to be done. Then on the next slide, we needed to undertake and review the uptake of the APSS. So what needed to happen here was that there was a funding webinar that was done, and in August last year, and there has been engagements with Safcoil in terms of provision of raw material, and Safcoil has agreed that those multi-year contracts will go out for the supply of logs through the auction, and there's also engagement that is happening with the funding institutions to encourage members of the sector to apply for funding. And there's also some information that is being shared with a number of stakeholders for them to either access raw material or to access funding that is happening within the sector in the different provinces. Then in terms of trade support for the sector to access African markets in slide 38, the industry wanted to have some access to trade to the African continent, and especially with the SADC region, in line with our SADC protocol on forestry, which promotes a trade and has identified that there is limited trade that is happening between the two countries, between us and the other SADC countries, especially on timber. So in this one, there has been an investigation that has been done in terms of the economic strategy, where we are getting some advice in terms of the competition acts within Southern Africa. So what has been picked up is that the competition laws, there's some challenges between the competition laws between ourselves and Mozambique specifically, which is one of the biggest consumers. And as a way forward, we then between ourselves and the TTIC assisting the industry in terms of looking at alternative ways to support the industry in accessing these markets, whether it's through the SADC protocol that we have, or any other additional agreements that are currently there within the country that can assist in this trade. And then Deliverable 7 on the next slide. There's a need here to make sure that there's a study for modernization of timber processing. So in terms of the targets here was to make sure that the study is done, and there has been some engagement in terms of trying to secure a service provider. So there's two studies that are being done. One deals with the commercial timber statistics, which is the responsibility of the department, and the the bid has been advertised, and evaluation is being done to make sure that we can have those reports issued out. And then in terms of the sawmilling South Africa, they have secured some funding for the benchmark study. Now, what has been experienced as a challenge was that when we looked at modernization, there was an initial challenge that in interpretation of what modernization would mean, it was thought that it would mean that technology would probably replace people, and therefore there would be jobs that would be lost in the sector. So there needed to be some clarity that this kind of modernization that we're looking at would look at new processes and new products to expand and make sure that there are jobs that would be created and jobs that would be retained. So the sector then consulted with some stakeholders, including Crickmay and Associates and the University of Stellenbosch, and then they realized that the way the initial study was going to be done was going to be a bit complex, and therefore would mean that it would need more money and time, and therefore there's now a recognition that maybe consideration of a desktop study and a more focused terms of reference would then assist so that there is development of the new processes and products, which will then open for jobs within the sector. Then in terms of Deliverable 8, which deals with wastewater, waste paper exclusions, there were challenges that were experienced, and PAMSA, which is the Paper Manufacturers Association, has then submitted the issues that they wanted to raise with the ITEC, and there's ongoing communication between ITEC and the industry, and to try and make sure that there is resolution of these waste paper issues, so that the waste paper exporting licenses and the shortages and the issues of purchasing are addressed. Deliverable 9 on the next slide. This one is looking at commission of studies to look at value addition in terms of the pine oils and xylitol, and making sure that there's conversion of wood into transparent wood. So work is continuing well here. The samples for pine oils have been tested, and there are some there's some indication that these can be used for things like a disinfection for COVID on hard surfaces. So there is some work continuing also in terms of production of xylitol at a laboratory scale, and also the fibers in terms of conversion of wood into transparent wood, where we are looking at beneficiation into cellulose nanofibrils and high value chain. So this work is continuing well, and we should then, by the end of the financial year, have good reports on this one. The next one deals with enforcement compliance that needs to be applied in board products. So there has been engagements with the SAPS, the NRCS, and DTIC in terms of the compliance requirements, and there has been a submission of some issues in terms of what the sector would require, and the discussions are taking place between the two, and then we will have further findings that we can then use as part of the continued work in the new financial year. So I think that would be the end of processing. In terms of illegal timber and crime-related activities, which is key focus area, that would be slide 44. Due to the illegal activities that are affecting the sector, there were a number of deliverables that were identified in this key focus area. It was then agreed, especially that for Deliverable 1, in terms of the establishment of a commercial forestry crime unit, that this deliverable be linked to Deliverable 4, because the work that is being done in that deliverable will assist in terms of making sure that the crime unit establishment is effective. Then the next one deals with the recruitment and training of and appointment of forest officers. As a department, we deal with the appointment of forest officers through our act, so we needed to do some awareness and provide that opportunity for companies to use the service should they require it. So most companies have indicated that they prefer to use external staff for security, and as and when they require the service, they will advise, and then we will be available to train those foresters as the need arises. In terms of the utilization of the provincial joint subs and attending those meetings so that issues of crime in the forestry sector are attended to. This is underway. Already there is some participation by the industry in the National Priority Committee for Extortion and Violence at different business sites, and additional provinces are being included in terms of participation in these joint committees. Then the next slide is the implementation of a forestry sector crime data system. In this one, looking at the crime-related matters, there was a need to undertake awareness and campaigns utilizing the anti-timber theft forums. So, and then collect the data and share that data on the different platforms. So for this to happen, there was a need to make sure that there's awareness that has been created. So the industry has then identified a service provider for the crime data systems, and several companies have already signed up on this. But what is required is additional companies to sign up so that there can be enough data that can be used and analyzed so that the sharing of information can be a true reflection. So as a department, we are then in the process of encouraging more companies to sign up so that we can have that enough data for the analysis and the sharing. Then the next one deals with a log transport permit system to allow the policing of SAPS to police the timber that is being transported. There's been incidences where there is illegal timber harvesting happening. This timber gets to be transported. So for the industry to be able to know who is transporting legal or illegal timber. So this permit system needs to be developed. So there's some preliminary discussions that have taken place with the different service providers to gather the information on the log transport system. But there's additional discussions that are required with the Department of Transport and the SAPS so that that transport system or the permitting system can be effective. This is one of the areas that has been escalated, and as a department, we are making sure that we have a discussion with the Department of Transport to highlight these issues that we need support from them so that the master plan can be implemented. And then the next deliverable is linked to the one above. So the work that is being done will then cover this deliverable. Then on slide 46, Deliverable 7. This one is based on making sure that there are amendments of some of the regulations to allow for the sector to function, and also making sure that the NRCS assists with the rates to look at compliance related matters. Raids have happened in KZN especially, and last year, and some were expected to happen in the later in this financial year, to ensure that there is some enforcement. In terms of the gazetting of the amendment of the regulations, these have been submitted, and there has been delays with the gazetting, and this is also an area that has been escalated for us to have a discussion with the DTIC to make sure that this matter is attended to as quickly as possible. I think that will be the end on terms of the illegal activities. The next key focus area deals with research, development, skills development, and capacity building. That would be slide 48.
Colleagues, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Chairperson.
And then can you also hear the presenter?
No, Pumeza. Gigi?
Yeah.
She's gone.
Yeah, that was the point. I thought it was on my side.
I think Pumeza has been logged out. We will try and call her DM to see whether she is connecting again.
Is Tebuko not here? Did she?
We have the other acting chief directors. We do have Gwen. Are you back?
Am I audible now, DJ?
Oh, okay. Yes, you are. Okay.
Oh, apologies about that. I don't know where I lost the connection. So maybe can I start with this deliverable again? Or I don't, with this one? Oh, okay. Just let me just switch off my video. I don't know what's going on. So with regards to the capacity for research and development, the transfer of staff has been finalized to make sure that the work of the master plan can continue. And then the next one was undertaking a joint study on, I'm sorry, was undertaking a joint study on research development and innovation. This work is currently going ahead. The study has been initiated and there are consultations that are currently happening to make sure that the study is being finalized. And then the next deliverable 4, deals with the priority setting through the research forum, so that the research agenda is there. So here we needed to make sure that the National Research Forum is operational, because when the branch moved from one department to the other and the other colleagues left behind, there were some issues that the forum experienced, and it needed to be revived. The forum has now been revived, and they have also reviewed the research and development strategy. The terms of reference have also been adopted, and the process is underway to now elect new leadership of that forum. Then the next slide deals with the funding related issues, so that research can continue. There is an MOA that has been drafted by the department and the industry to deal with the research issues, and this is currently in the process of being finalized, and the matter has been submitted through to the National Treasury. So the department has prioritized this, and the internal procurement challenges are being dealt with to ensure that there is speedy resolution on this matter. Then Deliverable 8 is linked to the National Forest Research Forum. So there were delays in this one because the forum was not functional for a while. Now that the forum is functional, then it will then develop the deliverables for this. Sorry, the targets for this deliverable, and then it will have an action plan, and then this work will continue. So going forward, we're not expecting that there will be a non-achievement in this deliverable. Then the next deliverable deals with skills development, mainly the skills audit that needs to be done. So a task team has been established between the different partners, including labor, industry, and the FP&M SITA, the terms of the proposal, the request for proposals was issued and has been received from service providers, but there's been some delay in terms of the finalization of the process, and this has been escalated to the CEO of the FPNM SETA to make sure that she facilitates that the appointment happens as soon as possible, so that the skills audit can continue to be done. And then the next slide, on slide 52, deals with the tracer study that needs to be conducted. This has been initiated and is going to be aligned with the work of the research forum. So the research forum needed to review the work that CREST was doing in the study. So now that the forum is functional, it will then deal with this matter, and it should then now be fast-tracked going forward. The next deliverable is on the assessment of current short courses to make sure that the courses that are available are in line with what is required, but also to make sure that there is training that takes place. FPNM SETA, the department and the industry and other role players have met and discussed this. Based on those discussions, there is some training that is currently happening in the Western Cape, where we are targeting that 90 SMMEs will be trained. And I think by end of Feb, we were just over 50 of those trained. So the training is currently happening, and we should have that finalized soon. I think that is the last one on key focus area 5. Then key focus area 6, that deals with, key inhibitors. That will be slide 54. So this key focus area looks at things that, if not addressed, they will cause challenges for us. These range from the water use licensing, issues related to transport, and all of those. So in this key focus area, the first one deals with the water use licenses that were issued between 1998 and 2020, where there was a need to amend those water use licenses due to the fact that they were not in line with what was required when they were issued. So these have been rectified. A template was agreed between the industry and the Department of Water and Sanitation, and those now are being amended as we speak. Then the second part of water-related issues is the genus exchange, where the industry wanted to do some exchanges in terms of the genus planted and the impacts of water use raised by Department of Water and Sanitation. So this matter was escalated, and they ended up taking each other to court. So what has happened so far is that the court case led to a judgment that was issued, and both parties have appealed. And now we will have to wait until the matter is resolved for us to be able to deal with issues related to genus exchange. And then in terms of the issues related to the diesel refund, there was a request that SARS considers to separate forestry from agriculture, to deal with their diesel refund matters in terms of tax-related issues. So this has been done, and their issues are going to be included in the 2022 guideline. The next one, Deliverable 4, deals with making sure that there is a performance of the conveyor system, where there needs to be quarterly forums convened by the different stakeholders. This is related to the rail transport that the industry uses for transport of logs. So there's been challenges with regards to this, the forum convening, and this has been escalated, and it's one of those focused meetings that the department is scheduling with the different stakeholders to make sure that they attend to these matters related to the master plan. And then the next one was ensuring that the productivity tariff is implemented. This has been submitted to the National Ports Authority to make sure that the tariff application is considered in the tariff structure. Then Deliverable 6. Deliverable 6 and 7 are both related in terms of the work of transport-related matters, where Deliverable 6 deals with the terminal tariff cost that needs to be addressed. So this has been submitted to the ports regulator, but there's been challenges with the comments because these have not been addressed as yet. So this is one of the areas that has been escalated as well, where the department is facilitating those discussions with the regulator. The next one deals with the industry rail issues in terms of ability of Transnet Freight to assist the industry in the transportation. There's been challenges as well here with the securing of the meetings. The industry has also tried to have these discussions. So this has now been escalated, and it's one of the areas that the department is facilitating the discussions to make sure that these issues are addressed. The next one, slide 57, Deliverable 7B, which deals with a one-stop shop. So to enable that there is alignment between government and industry on rail issues with the work that Transnet is responsible for. With the previous ones, there's challenges here with these meetings. So this is one of the areas as well that has been escalated for meetings with the Transport CEO and also with the DG of Department of Transport. The next one is the submission of a proposal to the Department of Transport in terms of inclusion of BPS in the National Transport Framework. So this also, we're experiencing challenges in terms of feedback that we have not received. So this is one of the areas as well that is escalated to be dealt with the Department of Agriculture. So I think with this key focus area, it shows that these key inhibitors when they were identified, were really challenges because we see with the way that the different stakeholders are looking at or trying to prioritize the work that they're supposed to do in support of this master plan. So these areas we are working towards making sure that we facilitate a resolution as I've indicated that we have escalated them. Then the last slide on this one deals with the afforestation issues, which is also addressed under key focus area 1, where there's 28,000 hectares that has been identified and a process to appoint an environmental practitioner is underway. Then the next slide just tries to bring together, slide 59, tries to bring together all these areas where we are struggling, where we've now put in some corrective measures. The first one dealing with the verification of state plantations, where we've indicated that we've identified a champion already and is currently working with the Department of Water and Sanitation to make sure that the working group has been established to fast track the process. There is an action plan that has been developed with strict timeframes, which will be used by both us as a department, but by also the master plan governance structures as well to track the process. And the matters of supply chain are being dealt with internally. And then in terms of capacity constraints.
I'm finding you.
I'm good.
Yes. Are you around Samakrins?
No, I'm in Samakrins.
Huh?
Teleka.
Or West, ne?
Yes.
Okay, so when are you going back?
In Samakrins? I think tomorrow.
Did you fix the roof thing? I couldn't come on Wednesday, ne? But I will go tomorrow. So I want to check, is everything done?
Yeah, you can check, but you try to look everywhere. You can check, maybe you'll find something that you say.
The roof thing in the
Which one?
Did you some help? Thank you.
What's going on now?
There was some interruption, Chair. Apologies.
Chilies.
I wanna.
I'm sorry, members. I'm sorry.
Eh?
I'm sorry, Chairperson.
Even my whip is doing the same. It's not only
No, I'm calling order on Chileka, Chairperson.
Chileka. Okay. Are we Pumeza?
Chair?
Yes. On slide 59.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on slide 59. Okay. In terms of the capacity issues, this has been escalated and is going to be dealt with in the discussions we're going to have with the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. Also with regards to all the transport-related issues, including the log transport permit system number 4, and also the ports and the ports of entry matters have also been escalated and will be dealt with within the Department of Transport and its entities. And apologies, Chair, I see there we have 2 number 4s. The second number 4, which deals with the research related issues, where we are saying that now that the forum is functional, most of the research related targets will then be able to be achieved, and we should see some progress there. Then the last slide in terms of a conclusion. And I think this is the area that the DG and the DM has already touched on to make sure that we are putting in place some measures to strengthen the department to allow us to be able to implement the master plan, where we're dealing with the strengthening of the secretariat. where there are some posts that have been advertised, and the appointment of the coordinator who will assist us, and also in terms of the strengthening of the project management office. And then secondly, will be the focused meetings with the different partners, including the National Department of Transport, Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, Science and Innovation, Water Affairs and Sanitation, the CETA, and others, to just make sure that all the areas that require attention are addressed. Thank you very much. I think that would be the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Pumeza. Thank you so much. We can then allow colleagues to ask questions. I want to see the hands of colleagues who want to ask questions. It will be Paulsen, followed by Phillips, followed by Bryant. Thus far, those are the two hands. Over to you, Honorable Paulsen.
Good morning. And
Pumeza, please mute your microphone, please. Can Pumeza mute your microphone, please? Yes, over to you, Honorable Paulsen, and good morning.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Thank you for the presentation. Chair, I believe this is a massive industry, and we've received presentations on that in the past. The size of this industry, that during the 2020 unrest in July, that this industry, because it was halted for a few days, it had a massive impact on the economy. So I believe this industry is massive, and it has a potential to create.
Can you raise your volume a bit, Honorable Paulsen? We're failing to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Get closer. Yes, that's better. Maintain it that way.
My apologies, Chairperson. So, Chairperson, just to emphasize that this is a massive industry, but in terms of the interest in this industry, it is denied benefit to the broader Black community, working class community. So I want to know from the department, is this going to be a matter again where those who have always been disadvantaged will again be disadvantaged? And we have to learn with what happened in the fishing rights allocation process, where again, those who always had the advantage were once again benefiting from the distribution of access to resources. So I want to know, how are we organizing, or who are we interacting with organizations that works with forestry stakeholders, ordinary workers, communities, to have a greater stake and share in the wealth of the forestry? Are we organizing them into co-ops where we are educating them and giving them the skills to access greater opportunities within the forestry industry? And then also, I'd like to know, how do we then treat forests on tribal land, where, like those held in the Ngonyama Trust, who have always been, it's always been a form of income for very few. How do we make sure that those type of forests that fall under land trusts are brought into the forestry master plan? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. Over to you, Honorable Phillips.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Chair. I made a number of questions as the presentation was going along, but they all seem to have more or less the same theme, is that something is not functional, or it's not completed on time, or the timeline wasn't adhered to, or the meetings are not scheduled. And this is like a recurring theme throughout. So what I'd actually like to know is, when these activities are scheduled, is there a timeline given to them? And if there is, and the timeline is not adhered to, what kind of consequence management is actually carried out? And then when it comes to dealing with other departments, like with the rail department, how can we help the department to actually ensure that you get the cooperation of the other departments? And how can we actually help you to hold the people to account who are not sticking to timelines? And then there was one slide 26 where it was marked in green because you submitted the request, but it should have been marked in red. We never got the funding. Why didn't we get the funding? What was wrong? Was the request late? Was it incorrect? Was there no money? Didn't we qualify? What was the reason? Surely if the idea was to submit a request to get funding and we don't get the funding, then it should become red, not green. And then, so if we can have such a glaring abnormality there, I actually worry about all the other reports. And really, it just looks like a lot of this is purely organizational management that is not taking place with the proper timelines. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, dear colleague. Over to you, Honorable Bryant.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And I echo some of the sentiments of Honourable Phillips. Thank you for the presentation to the officials. Just firstly, in terms of the new afforestation targets, I see KZN and Eastern Cape are mentioned as the two sort of focus provinces. Are other provinces being considered for major afforestation projects? If so, which provinces? And if not, why are other provinces not being considered? It was also interesting, quite heartening to hear the comments around industry creating around about 4 times as many jobs as government. I think it bears out some of the sentiments that were shared by the president during SONA around business creating those jobs. And it really is fantastic to see that is taking place. I just wonder if it might be worthwhile, Chairperson, at some stage for us to conduct an oversight visit at some of these timber processing plants to see some of these new technologies taking place, in particular the mass timber processing and these new firm timbers that are being created that can be used for building far more ambitious projects than one would normally be able to achieve simply with regular types of wood. So I would suggest that we try and set some of those oversight visits up at some stage, and I will take it upon myself, Chair, to submit some proposals to you in this regard for your consideration. Just in terms of some of those key deliverables that weren't achieved, some of the ones that stood out for me, the verification of state plantations. I see there is information outstanding, and this GIS specialist has been hired. What is that outstanding information that hasn't been able to be submitted yet? In terms of the management of the exit plantations, this is a very, very big issue, in particular those unlawful occupations of some of the plantations, in particular the settlement known as Knoflokskraal in Grabo. I just want to know whether or not DPW and DFFE are on the same page when it comes to proceeding with those evictions. It appeared at one stage that there was a little bit of mixed wires there in terms of what was taking place. So I just want to ensure that those evictions are proceeding, because those sites, and particularly the Grabo site, has a lot of potential for dignified housing projects to be put in place for people from previously disadvantaged backgrounds in collaboration with the private sector there. But a lot of those projects are now being stymied because of these unlawful occupations that are taking place. So if we could just have a little bit more information, in particular, whether or not DPW and DFFE are meeting and are on the same page in terms of proceeding with those evictions. And then two final issues, the rail issues escalation to Transnet, and also the one-stop shop matter, both of those relating to meetings with transport. I see that they've been escalated. Who have they been escalated to? So whose job is it now to set those meetings up? And why were those meetings not set up in the first place? Where did the fault lie? Was it with DFFE officials, or was it a challenge in getting a response from Transnet and transport officials? If you could please give me an answer in terms of that. I think it's important for us to be aware so that we don't tar the DFFE officials with a brush if it is actually a fault of another department. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Can I allow Honorable Weber to ask your questions?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for the presentation. I agree this is a very vast, I can't say new branch of the community, but it is certainly one that had to start from the ground. But Chair, can you hear me clearly? I get complaints that I'm too soft.
I can hear you.
Thank you, Chair.
You are audible, loud and clear.
Thank you. On slide 54, you were talking, when you speak about your water use licenses, my question there is a little bit, you said that it was sorted out in 2020 and DWS will start implementing immediately. So my questions is as follows. Did you start immediately? When is that immediately the date? Has it been longer than a year? Because the AG is supposed to give an audit for every water license used by end of every year. So I would like to know if there has been already of these audits, or have they started? Haven't they started? Then I would like to know that if they did receive the audits, can we see them? How many water use licenses are there now? Because we just saying there was one and now they sorted it out. So I would like to know how many there is at this stage. Then, my apologies. We spoke about the list of EIAs. Now, EIAs is very close to my heart because we struggle to get the EIAs. And you say here that you've sorted it out, all the EIAs is there. So just to confirm here that there is not one area where there is an EIA outstanding. And can you then please provide us with the EIAs for every area so that we can know which are the areas and the EIAs that goes along with it. Then my last question, it is something that's not, my second last question was not really projected here. But Chair and colleagues, with forestry, there is a major illegal trade. And I don't know under whom this falls, but it feels like we're ignoring it because people have guns, people have certain things with what they do, and it's not also violent conditions, but there are areas that's like that. Do we dealing with these, or are we also just going to let them go and become zamas and destroy our environment? Because the idea of the forestry is to increase environment, we're doing well, we manage it, but how do we manage the illegal trade and whose responsibility is that, and is there a plan for that as well? If so, can we please have that plan? And then lastly, I know our Minister Creasy started a tree project. I don't know if it falls under this, and so correct me, am I right? I just would like to know how that tree planting in various areas of the actually in South Africa is going, and how we can assist. Thank you very much, Chair.
Apologies. Thank you so much, Honorable Weber. From my side, I need to understand the following. Maybe it's in a way of clarity that I want to get from the department on how community forest agreements work in practice in terms of the roles, responsibilities, and obligations for the department and involved communities. I want to also understand whether the department have a clear understanding of how many state-owned plantation forests that under it that are currently affected by the land restitution and the different stages where these land claims are. And then I want to also understand whether these claims are expected to be completed within the lifespan of the forestry master plan. And then one also want to understand what is the department doing on your part to expedite this process. Then you also talked about small growers interspacing their trees with food crops. Obvious, because trees take long to grow and to reach the desired sizes. Then the question is whether these small growers are practicing agroforestry. If so, then the issue is what tree species are they using to make them compatible with the growing of food and crops. Then I think some colleagues started to raise this concern. If not Honorable Paulson who spoke first, it could have been Honorable Phillips. Because the issue here, as I've indicated in my opening remarks, we are now in 2022. And then the master plan is meant to be for 2020 to 2025. And then when, I think Honorable Phillips raised this, but the issue here, does the time range actually implying that the identified issue will be addressed by 2025? And then it also means that all the identified challenges are going to be resolved by 2025. And then maybe for us to understand what informed the 24 billion investment, because you see, this master plan says you are going to create 100,549 jobs that will be relying on this 24.6 investment. But when you look on your slide 15, you have reported that already 11.1 billion has been invested in the industry. That has translated to 6,264 jobs. And the money is almost half of the amount that you have requested. Then looking at the percentage, the number of jobs compared to the 100,549, you are counting to 6,264 jobs. Then this makes the 6% of the 100,549 jobs. And then we want to understand this huge disjunction between the investment and the jobs created. I think you need to clarify as to that effect. And then my other issue is with regard to this land. There's category A, B, C. The prime land, good land, you've rented it out to those companies. Then around that as well, you are saying it's reported that you are finalizing the MOU and post-settlement support packages for the Kapsewo site. And then in that, we don't see any timelines for concluding these post-settlement support packages for all forestry-related claims sites. It's linked to my initial question. Maybe you need to take us in confidence to actually what is happening here. Then the other issue that is of importance, the master plan, it says that you had to organize a colloquium on conflicting fire-related legislation, which needs to be realigned to ensure effective fire risk management. And then you even went to an extent of identifying them being the National Field and Forest Fire Act, the Fire Brigade Services Act, and the Municipal Structure Act 117 of 1998. But then, when one reads page 18 of the master plan, it says there is a need to address conflicting legislations to be aligned without mentioning specific areas. And then you go to slide 23 of the presentation. It implies that there are no conflicts in the legislation. Then I think you need to explain to us this contradiction between the master plan and the presentation. And then to also want to understand whether the envisaged colloquium actually set to discuss the amendments of the National Field and Forest Fire Act, and are there weaknesses or conflicts identified by the forestry sectors covered in the bill that we are currently processing by Parliament? Because our expectation, this master plan, we're going to talk to some of the issues that we raised there. Then the other issue that is critical is touching on what Honorable Paulson was saying. One of the initiative of government incentive is through multi-year contracts to supply logs to Savcom. And then the issue here, when we're talking about your transformation agenda, what has been the uptake of this opportunity among growers in the south? And then we are concerned in fact, that's what we've been observing, DM, in all your presentations. In the past, the issue will be COVID. Now, we considered your progress reports last time, and then we are getting worried now because now most of your missed targets are primarily caused in supply chain delays in the appointment of the service provider. And then when we ask the question on the environmental programs, that was the response to say the problem is with the supply chain matters as well. Are we saying all those supply chain regulations and legislations are not user-friendly, specifically for this department? And then can you maybe address us to that effect with the issues that are raised here? Because there are so many missed targets here that you've missed, and then the primary cause is in supply chain delays in the appointment of service provider. I understand yourselves as senior manager in terms of the supply chain, value chain. You plan. Once you get your budget, you need to plan also the procurement in terms of your project management. What is actually the problem that you are not telling us that makes you not to? Because this impacts on the poor, the most vulnerable that we represent. So are you saying your own policies, then they're the one that are then making you not to address the issues as one of your mandate, you being in the economic sector of fighting poverty, unemployment, and inequality, because supply chain is a problem? I think you need to share with us today, because that has been a trend on those key critical elements. Last time I even asked a question that upset the minister when I talked. It seems as if this issue of creating jobs, fighting inequality and unemployment, you are not taking it seriously as a department. And the trend continues, DM. And we are concerned because those, and then when this is happening, you see, people are getting into all those government plantations because they are not even taken care of. They are busy, like where I stay around here, they are busy then cutting all those trees. And that's gonna have an impact on climate change, because in some areas, that's where our water sources are coming from. And people are invading this because nothing seems to be happening where the land is managed by government. So I should think then you need to also address us to that effect. I see the end of Paulson Mara, I suspect is the old one. I wanted to double check that none of the other colleagues, I might have omitted them. So that those are the concerns that one wants to raise. Over to you, DM and Tim.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thanks to members for those questions. I think the questions will then strengthen our master plan as we are at the stage of implementation. I've noted the questions raised by members, especially, Chair, when you highlighted issues of transformation within the sector, as well as Honorable Paulson, who also then indicated that we are dealing with a very massive industry, but there is a concern with regard to transformation. Indeed, that's true. I will ask DG to just respond on issues of supply chain, as you have correctly indicated that in most areas where there are challenges, there is supply chain mentioned. Unfortunately, I went through the presentation as I have indicated. I requested more clarity so that if you say supply chain, you must go further and indicate what are the challenges with regard to the supply chain. I'm sure that the acting DDG will then be in a position of responding to that, and also on the issue of the funding of the 24.9 billion investment, she will be in a position of responding to that. And then if there are some other issues that then they might not be able to respond to those, I will attempt to respond to them in closing. Otherwise, if not, members are not happy about that, we'll then respond in a way of as how we always do, in a way of a written form. But I think so far the questions that has been asked by members are questions that we are dealing with in the implementation of the master plan. I'm sure that the team will be in a position of responding to those questions. But one thing that I need to indicate, Chair, the area that always becomes a problem or a challenge is where then the department is not responsible for the implementation of that specific area. As Honorable, I think it's Honorable Brian, who asked about when you said that it's elevated to what? Is when we discovered that where the industry is supposed then to, for instance, convene a meeting and then they don't enjoy the support of other external forces, is then that it is sent to ourselves, and we say that if it's an entity that accounts to Department of Transport, then our DG and the DG of that department need then to make sure that they assist in a way of intervention. Failing to do that, and then we as the political heads will have to take over. But so far, Chair, I think we are happy with the questions, and then I will give over to DG and the team to respond to those questions. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Over to you, DG.
Thank you very much, DM. Thank you, Honorable Chair, and to the members on the questions. I am going to be assisted by the DDG in responding to the forestry related issues that were raised by the members. And also we have the acting chief directors. There's two of them present in the meetings. I think they will assist then the DDG and myself. I think on the first question that I want to address, Chair, I think Honorable Phillips, has raised a crucial concern around issues of timeframes, where then there are certain activities that would have been earmarked to be delivered as per the various targets. And there are instances where those timeframes have not been adhered to. I would want to acknowledge, Chair, that during the first year of implementation of the Forestry Master Plan, there were serious issues around the capacity, which we are indicating that we are now trying to address by ensuring that we have the PMO, we bring capacity on board, and also we deal with filling in of vacancies in as far as that is concerned. So the time frames and the timelines and the slack in the time frames were mainly as a result of lack of that capacity. And what then we did, we had to utilize existing officials in terms of then establishing capacity to focus on this master plan. So while they would be doing their existing responsibility and functions, they also then had to also assist, which then would have impacted on the slowness. And we do acknowledge that there hasn't been a very fast traction in terms of the implementation of the master plan taking off in the first year. Obviously, I think the other issue that Honorable Phillips raised is consequence management. I think, as already highlighted, we needed to have put measures in place to address capacity, as opposed to penalize, obviously, the officials that would have now been doing their existing function plus also additional. So we, as an institution, as a department, then had a responsibility to bring on board additional capacity so that we can then accelerate the implementation of the master plan. The other area that Honorable Phillips is raising, which we are in agreement with, and I think it should really not have been a green, as already flagged, where we are talking about the presidential stimulus program. And as a department, given that the lockdown affected a number of sectors, we also looked at the forestry sector to see to what extent can those funding assist. And unfortunately, we submitted a funding request. I think that was during 2020, when all departments were submitting the request for additional funding. Yes, that area, by submitting, Chair, I would like to agree with the honorable member that I think it's something that was just an oversight on our side. It does not mean that it was achieved, because we did not necessarily make an impact in terms of then assisting the sector where they would have actually been impacted upon by the lockdown. But I think the DDG can be in a position just to highlight, because beyond this, we are continuing to look at other measures to see to what extent, especially the small growers, where we need to work in collaboration with the Department of Small Business and ensure that we come up with some form of initiatives that are going to unlock resources and also support the small forestry growers in as far as the industry is concerned. The other matter that I also just want to highlight, I think the others, the DDG and the chief directors will respond to. Honorable Bryant raised an issue around the current challenge of land invasions, especially on the Grabo. And I think the major area there that Honorable Bryant wanted to clarify, are we on the same page with the Department of Public Works? We work very closely with the Department of Public Works in as far as the matter is concerned. We are currently engaging on this issue. We have had an engagement with the local municipality there, and also the various stakeholders that are actually potentially impacted upon in the areas. What we have done is that we are looking into securing alternate land in as far as this matter is concerned. We have our officials, I think it was as latest as last week, we're doing those engagements with the various stakeholders in the area, given the seriousness of the matter. And regardless of us being granted an order of the court to evict those illegal occupants in that area, we have done that. However, I think we have not necessarily been successful. That's why we're looking at alternatives of an alternate land, and also securing that alternate land will involves then the discussion that we have had with the municipalities concerned. I am having a discussion on this matter and other matters where we collaborate with DPWI next week, and this issue of the illegal occupation at Grabo and the solutions that we're coming with, we're trying to pursue with the municipalities and the stakeholder, will be part of the discussion, given that they are a key stakeholder and they are key partners in ensuring that the matter of these illegal occupation are resolved in the Western Cape. Chair, I think the other part that DM also has requested that I address, and I think it has been raised by yourself and the members also when we presented the department's performance, the issues around SCM. And the concerns that the delays have had an impact, especially around the environmental programs, but also it is surfacing in the presentation that we are presenting today. And I would want to share with the committee that there are issues of capacity within SCM. That's the first part. But secondly, as a department, we do subscribe and we have to adhere to the regular regulatory prescriptive of SCM. But there was an issue of a very weak SCM in the past, such that the awareness around the level of compliance by the department. That's why we have had the Auditor General identifying a number of our contracts as irregular. The awareness was not at an expected level, and as a result, we then had to sit down and look at a plan on how best to address all the root causes that are there in supply chain. Supply chain capacity, if I would look at the whole department, we have a department with almost close to 10 branches, but we have positions of supply chain of not more than 20 or 23. And that was mainly driven in the past by the fact that the department, most of its budget was not necessarily on goods and services, where then it required sufficient capacity to procure. Majority of the budget for the department in the past was classified as transfers. So the department was utilizing implementing agents, and they would transfer to the implementing agent. And obviously, as we have shared with the committee, that created challenges, given that the department then could not account for how then those resources that were transferred were actually then utilized, and did we derive the actual value and the benefit for which those funds were intended to. But also with the modernized cash standard that was introduced, there was therefore also a clear definition of what constitutes a transfer and what constitutes a goods and service in terms of a department procuring a service. And that resulted in a number of all those resources now being categorized, which then as goods and services, which then compelled that we need to then go out and procure, it's an extensive procurement, which the department was not geared in terms of its capacity. We are dealing with those matters in terms of dealing with bringing on board capacity and ensuring there's appropriate capacity, but also training various managers and officials in the department around how they need to go about doing the procurement, but what are the critical regulatory compliance that they have to adhere to. And that, Chair, I must acknowledge it is taking a bit of time because we are changing the culture of the business in the department, and that would have affected some of the deliverables. We are hoping and we are positive that we, as we go along, we are then going to be moving away from irregular expenditure, reducing the irregular expenditure, but also ensuring that then we have sufficient capacity to then deal with the demand, given that there's a huge demand in as far as this is concerned. We also inherited the two branches, I think Fisheries and also Forestry, where we have only now that we are dealing, dealing with the issues of capacity on SEM. There were officials that were dealing with SEM in those branches that are in the various regions that were not necessarily being utilized. So we have worked with those officials in our regions to ensure that they now beef up the departmental capacity in as far as SCM is concerned. Chair, this is an ongoing area that we are giving attention to. I do have weekly engagements with the SCM team to look at what stage are our various projects in terms of tenders, evaluation, and also going through adjudication. So those have been the main challenges, Chair, where it was mainly around changing the culture of doing business in the department. Obviously, I do agree with the committee that we cannot use this as an excuse. We have to address it and ensure that we make an impact on the ground in terms of job creation is concerned. Honorable Chair, can I request, with your permission, for the DDG and maybe assisted by the other colleagues in responding to the forestry related matters? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and members, and thank you, DG. I will respond to some of the questions, and then I have Mr. Deboho Matiane with me in the room, who will respond to the questions related to agroforestry and afforestation. I think Mr. Madula will deal with the issues related to fires. Then we'll see if there are any additional issues that we will also need to respond to. Now, in terms of the question raised by Honorable Paulson on whether we are providing support to the communities or the previously disadvantaged people, and organizing them so that they are able to benefit in forestry in the future. One of the things that we have tried to do or ensured in the master plan is that there is a specific target that talks to ownership, supported by a target that talks to post-settlement support, which will then have the issues of what kind of support we provide to the communities, whether it's funding, whether it's training aligned to the skills development work that the FPNM SITA is assisting us on. And we are also working with the Department of Agriculture and Land Reform and Rural Development to make sure that post-settlement support is a reality. And they then support us in terms of the establishment of the relevant structures and making sure that those structures function appropriately. I think we've already mentioned in the presentation that there is some training that is currently happening, but through the MOU that we have with the Department of Small Business, there is additional activities in terms of training that have been included there in terms of supporting these SMMEs. Then, in terms of how do we treat our forests that are in tribal land, the idea is that when we either let me say, depending on the nature of the forest or type of the forest, if it goes through a process of being a community forestry, done through a community forestry agreement, obviously the community that is set up there within the structures, we do look at what kinds of benefits these communities should have, and then we become involved in terms of monitoring those agreements. And maybe I can link this question to the question that was asked by the Honorable Chair in terms of how do the community forestry agreements work in practice in terms of roles and responsibilities. What we have done is the Act is very specific in terms of what the community forest agreement must have. And then we have then developed a guideline that guides us in terms of if you are a forester at a provincial level, what is it that you are supposed to do? If you are at the national office, what you are supposed to do. In essence, what we do basically is to just make sure that the forests are productive. If there is a need for additional funding, we ensure that we facilitate that funding through the different funding partners, whether there's a need for us to link that particular community with a strategic partner. And then we use our framework, what we call, what is PCINS? Principles, criteria, indicators, and standards that have been developed through the Act, where they look at monitoring whether the plantations are functioning effectively. So we've put in that framework within the agreement, where we then come in as a department and assist the communities in dealing with that. So we do a whole lot of those things to just make sure that the community understands what they need to do. We also understand what we need to do, but we bring in our sister departments for assistance, especially rural development, if there are conflicts within the communities, or at COPTA to assist us with those. Okay, then Afforestation. Then in terms of the verification of information, When the information was requested, we submitted all our compartment lists and the information that we usually use for the evaluation to water affairs. And then there was an indication that they needed a specific property descriptions and in terms of, so that they can allocate the boundaries and all of that. At some point, they also needed us to produce proclamations for the plantations. So through the GIS work that we've been doing now, we've now produced and submitted the maps so that they can see where the boundaries are, and then they can start to pin and allocate those boundaries, and then they can be able to do their allocations. And we have also been working through the National Archives in getting the copies of the proclamations that they need so that we can provide that information. And then in terms of the water licenses, where we've indicated that the matter has been resolved in terms of re-looking at the conditions, and that is being attended to. May we request that we get to the Department of Water Affairs to get the actual number of licenses that they have revised thus far, and they can be able to give us that audit, and then we can submit that information, and also in terms of the number of water use licenses. And then in terms of the questions that were raised by Honorable Weber, I missed a bit on, I think the third and the fourth question. There was something about, I'm not sure whether it was about illegal invasions or it was about how we deal with that. I'm not sure. And then there was something that she also referred to on tree planting that we could not get. If we can get some clarity on that, then we can be able to respond to those two. And then in terms of the claims that the plantations that are affected by land claims, the plantations that we manage, may I request that we submit a table that we have. We know which plantations are affected and where the process is at. We get support from the Department of Agriculture and Land Reform and Rural Development in terms of the updates of the claims that they deal with. And through this master plan process, we then identify the plantations that we would want to prioritize, so that within the years that we have in terms of finalization of this master plan, all those issues are addressed. And then the issues of agroforestry, Tebogo will deal with. Then in terms of what informed the 24 billion, we're looking at the number of jobs that have been created versus the money that has already been invested. The funding, the way it was structured, was such that some of the funds would go into the processing industry, where they would, for instance, if they needed to upgrade a certain mill or build a certain mill or whatever the case may be, so that the processes within that mill can function more effectively, to increase issues of timber yield and make sure that whatever timber goes through, there's maximum capacity that they can get out of the mill. So the work with regards to the processing side, or the establishment or building of those mills, had already started, and it has happened. So there has been an investment that has happened there. Most of the jobs within the primary sector, which are the targets that we are currently struggling with, and those are the ones that we are fast tracking. So once we can be able to plant more areas to get the state plantations under production, then there will be more jobs then created at the primary sector. That will then have a knock-on effect on the contracting side in terms of the number of contractors that you can employ in the different areas, a knock-on effect on as the trees grow, then like in the pole industry, the production of the poles, or in the sawmilling industry. So our main issue is in the primary sector, and that is where we now want to focus on, so that we are able to sort out the issues in the primary production, and then more jobs can be created going forward. Then, yeah, I think I have answered more or less all the questions. I will ask Deboho, yeah, maybe come sit closer to the speaker, if you can address the other issues, and then we'll ask Madula to come through.
Good afternoon, honorable members. My name is Deboho Matiani, Director Small Scale Forestry. I will deal with the questions related to afforestation, agroforestry, and environmental impact assessments. With regard to the question asked by Honorable Bryant on why are we focusing on the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal, it's because afforestation is regarded as a stream flow reduction activity in terms of the National Water Act, and that before one can undertake afforestation, a license is required. So the department, in order to plan holistically for this program, conducted suitability assessments in all provinces except the Western Cape. The reason being there was already this decision of withdrawal in some parts of the Western Cape, the decommissioning. So the results were that there's good suitability in the Eastern Cape, followed by KwaZulu-Natal. In the provinces of Limpopo and Mpumalanga, the study recommended that afforestation can only take place if we do water trading with irrigation farmers who are no longer using their land. I think the area that was identified for this purpose for Limpopo amounted to 6,000 hectares, and from Mpumalanga about 8,000 hectares. Now, when the department tried to pursue this initiative, it seemed a bit laborious, and because in some instances agriculture would indicate that they would still need to use that water that has been allocated. So the decision was that it's best that we pursue where we are having clear outcomes in terms of suitability, that is KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape. Then the question asked by the Honorable Weber on the environmental impact assessments. The target there is we are preparing the land for afforestation, and as I've indicated that we need a license, and part of the conditions of the license is to conduct this environmental impact assessment. So we've collated the land, consulted with communities or their reps, and then the projects or the localities that have been identified have been subjected to a screening tool that is available in the department to assess feasibility in terms of environmental considerations. So the total hectarage in terms of these projects in KwaZulu-Natal amounts to 28,000 hectares. So this 28,000 hectares worth of projects will now be subjected to the environmental impact assessment process in the forthcoming financial year. So we're busy with the process of appointing the environmental practitioner. Then the question that was asked by the Honorable Chair on agroforestry. When we started the agroforestry and we developed the strategy and implementation plan, it was with a key focus predominantly on issues of household food security for the growers. Now, what is happening, it is expected that in a well-established enterprise growing operation, if the rotation is 7 years, so it means in part of the land you've harvested, in part of the land you're having at least 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds and so on in terms of the normal timber that we are producing in the country. So the intercropping system of agroforestry will be suitable where you are planting in between the 1-year-olds as well as the 2-year-olds. And then as soon as your next compartment is harvested, then you prepare that next compartment for agroforestry as well. However, where the land for small growers is not fully planted, they can also be able to practice what we call sequential system of agroforestry, where on one part you have in the trees and on another part you are having your crops, and if possible on another part you can still have animals. Now, the concept of agroforestry, according to our understanding and the literature, in our continent here originated mostly in those countries that are near the equator. That's where they are practicing growing crops under the canopy of the trees. Now, unfortunately, here in South Africa, we're not well endowed with the natural forests. So the concept that we're piloting was groundbreaking in the sense that not much has been documented where we are planting crops in between these commercial plantations. That is your eucalyptus trees that are mostly used. So we are still finalizing the piloting, which will now result with the guidelines. And we are assisted in most of the time by the Agricultural Research Council has been working with us, but at times there is some support from universities like University of Pretoria. Okay, thank you, honorable members.
Rene?
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning, honorable members. Since I'm also taking the mic for the first time, let me also acknowledge the Deputy Minister, the DG, and honorable members. My name is Abashoni Reni Madura. I'm the Director of Forestry Regulation and Oversight, and I'm currently Acting Chief Director of Forestry Development and Regulation, while Pumeza is dealing with important matters as Acting DDG. I will attempt to respond to the questions raised by the Honorable Chair, specifically around the target on fires. in particular the target where we had been tasked with trying to address issues relating to the conflicts that stakeholders thought existed between the various legislation, in particular those that were responsible for the National Field and Forest Fires Act, and those that of the custodian, that the NDMC or COCTA is the custodian of, specifically the Fire Brigade Services Act and the Municipal Structures Act. The focus was mainly on those pieces of legislation because, as I try to answer the first part of the question from the chair as to whether the curriculum itself has met. What we have done, instead of calling a colloquium in the true sense of the word, we, as also indicated by Ms. Nodad earlier when she was reporting, that we attempted not to create new structures or institutions, but to use some of the existing structures that are already there. In this particular instance, we convened the meeting of the National Field and Forest Fire Working Group, which is a stakeholder forum chaired by the department, which is comprised of, in the main, various government departments that are, in terms of the National Field and Forest Fires Act, considered to be state land or owners or operators. This includes the Department of Defense, DPW, Department of Water Affairs, Department of Agriculture, amongst others. It also includes private landowners, mainly represented by Fire Protection Association and the Umbrella Fire Protection Association. Also in the forum or the working group, we also have the South African Weather Services, the CSIR, insurance companies, because they also have interest. They are interested in issues related to fire and the damage caused by fire should they happen. So we convened that meeting to look at the tasks that were given with respect to that target in the master plan. And what had been agreed as a collective is that there are no specific contradiction in terms of the legislation. What is required is a collaboration between different institutions that have a role in dealing with issues of integrated fire management. In particular, ourselves as a department and the National Disaster Management Center, in collaboration with the provincial disaster management centers and other role players, to collaborate on an ongoing basis to address issues or specific mandates provided for in the different pieces of legislation. For example, the National Field and Forest Fires Act make provision in situation where an FPA has been established, where a fire service exists, or a municipality, if a member or a municipality is a member of a fire protection association. It provides that the chief fire officer in that particular municipality should ideally be the fire officer of the FPA. This is meant to ensure that the strategic plans or fire management plan of FPAs are coordinated or integrated into the plans of the municipalities with regard to issues of firefighting. So hence, there needs to be closer collaboration between ourselves and the municipalities and COGTA to ensure that there is capacitation of those chief fire officers in terms of their knowledge and understanding of the obligations in terms of this piece of legislation. Following those discussions or deliberation within the working group, we did engage with the NDMC to further have deliberations and get their own inputs and perspective in relation to the processes that we are currently busy with, which is now seized with the portfolio committee in relation to the amendment of the National Field and Forest Fires Act. So to that end, we had agreed that if there are any other issues, taking into account that during the consultation process, they had already provided inputs into the bill. If there are any other issues that will arise, those issues will then be dealt with within the context of the parliamentary processes currently underway, including the public consultation on the bill. It is also worth mentioning that the NDMC or COGTA are also in the process of amending the Fire Services Act. So those aspects, if there are any that will emerge, will also be dealt with in that particular context. That's how I can respond to those questions raised by the Honorable Chair. If there are any other further questions, we are at your disposal to address those. Thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members.
Thomas, I see your microphone is on. You want to say something?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for coming back to the floor. There was an issue about the need to deal with or to make sure that we resolve the current challenges, including the issues of land reform prior to the end of the term of the master plan. So what we are doing here, Chair, is as indicated, we want to fast track all the outstanding targets, and with the assistance of the PMO that we want to appoint in terms of collating and coordinating with all these government departments, so that there is strict timelines that we adhere to. If we do that, and then we are able to especially resolve the issues or targets related to the primary sector, then everything else will be easy to be addressed. So the year 2 and year 3 and year 4 targets are based on and a continuation of the year one implementation plan that we want to fast track when we start this new financial year. So, Chair, I think in terms of that, we will then make sure that within this new financial year, we've targeted that at least by the end of the first 6 months, we should be at a different level in terms of addressing these challenges and putting additional efforts, if needs be, to make sure that we are on par and we catch up on the issues that are still outstanding. Thank you very much, Chair. And also, we obviously, with the land restitution matters, that is why we want to bring in the Department of Agriculture into the discussion firmly, so that they can then make sure that in terms of the work that they are doing, they take into account the issues related to the master plan as they have an impact on the work that we are doing. Thank you.
My question on the community forest agreements remain unanswered. Secondly, I asked whether you have a clear understanding of how many state-owned plantation forests under yourself are currently affected by land restriction. That question as well is not answered. Then, with due respect, Mr. Madura, before I allow the others that want to comment, is your own master plan that said you are going to organize a colloquium on conflicting fire-related legislation? Now you come here and tell us there's no legislation. That's why I said explain it in line with your presentation. And DM, I'm very much concerned under the circumstances. Did you develop this document yourself, the master plan, or it was so such that you didn't understand the contents of it, such that now you're only seeing it post when you are busy implementing it? Because honestly, that response that Mr. Madura gave us to say, no, we didn't want tapping on what the DDG said of so many structures, then we called so and so. But it's your own document that says you are going to organize a colloquium. If I may ask, did you revise it now to be in line with what you're saying? And also the issue of the conflicting legislation. Then I'm worried. If it's an outsourced document, tell us, then you didn't, but I know it went post approval. If cabinet, that's how cabinet works. And then now you're coming and telling us now we realize certain things are not implementable. Did you take pains to revise them so that it's in line? Because it's still as it is. When one is reading it, it's still as it is to say, you said you're going to organize a colloquium on conflicting legislation. Now later on you realize, why did you put it there? And then are you just preparing these documents just with malicious compliance? I think on our side, it's a very disturbing response, I must say that. And then, why didn't you say then we didn't meet the colloquium as we had envisaged to do that? So changing, whereas your documents are saying others. Then the further question I'm saying then, if one had gone through the whole master plan, how many other things that are there that are unrealistic? Colleagues, you want to raise follow-up questions? So DDG, you'll have to respond to me on that one. Colleagues, is there any one of you who want to make follow-up questions? You covered. The site. Oh, Honorable Phillips, over to you.
Hi, Chair. Thank you so much. No, you actually did cover me, but I just wanted to emphasize, when we're talking about forests, how very, very important any fire mitigating measures are, because without those measures, anything that we do is going to endanger the business that we are starting, plus it's going to endanger the businesses around the plantations. So it's like really, it's not an optional extra. It's got to be something that must be done. Thank you so much, Chair.
Okay. Can we get responses?
Chairperson, I am going to request Ms. Nodada to respond to your two questions. On the area of concern that you are raising, I am requesting that we be given an opportunity to look into the matter and ensure that we provide an appropriate response. I don't think it would be correct for us to change a document or change a view or have a different view in terms of the resolution and also recommendation and plans that were adopted by Cabinet. So I'm requesting that we be given an opportunity to then come back to yourself on the issues of colloquium. If it was not done, we will indicate what were the reasons, but also the issues of the disparities of what the presentation is saying and what would have been in the master plan around the conflicting legislation. With your permission, can I request the DDG to respond to the two questions you raised? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, DG. Yeah, it's on. Thank you, DG. In terms of how the community forestry agreements work in practice, what happens is that a community would then approach the department to request whether they can be allowed to manage a certain portion of a plantation. So for that process to be acceptable, we then go out and do consultations within that community and the communities around to try and ascertain if there are any additional communities that need to be considered. We get the community resolutions as facilitated and assisted by the Department of Land Reform to make sure that whatever was submitted as an offer is exactly what that community is agreeing on doing. Then once the agreement has been signed, we then go through a process of making sure that there is a structure or a committee that oversees the implementation of the agreement, where we are involved as the department. There's the leadership of that particular community and the other government departments as required. So if a particular community, for instance, says that they would then want to have a strategic partner, we then assist them in procuring that strategic partner, where we would then look at which partner is providing what type of assistance to look at what would work best for the community, do an analysis of those proposals, and then the community is able to agree or disagree to say whether they would want to work with partner X or partner Y. But then as part of the monitoring, we then do annual audits to check whether the forest is still functioning the way it's supposed to be. Are there any issues that need to be addressed, whether it's in terms of just basic sustainable forest management principles, in terms of the growing of the trees or management of the business, what community issues are emerging, is the partner doing what they had committed to do. So we provide that support, and we make sure that we track all of that. So with the new agreements that we are signing in this financial year, those are the things that we've set to say we're going to do, and the specific colleagues in the different provinces that take that responsibility, and that is captured in their performance agreements to make sure that they do that work. Then in terms of the whether we know which plantations are claimed and how far the process is at, we do know. We do have a list of the claims that we have in our plantations. What we do, we check that on an ongoing basis with the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, just to make sure whether there has been new developments in terms of the research that they need to do on those claims, which ones are about to be finalized and such. So we do have a list of those claims that are affecting our plantations. I think, Chair, that would be my response in terms of your two questions. Thank you.
My question on the land claims is partially answered, not fully. You do have the list. And then what are the different stages where these land claims are? Because now you have the list. And when are these claims going to be completed within the lifespan of the forestry master plan? And then what part are you playing to expedite this process? I'm not asking for a dialogue. I'll allow you to speak. You see, and then I've asked the question that still remain unanswered on the master plan. Did you prepare the master plan yourself, or it was an outsourced document that you finally submitted to Cabinet for approval? Because seemingly some of you seem not to know or understand the contents of the master plan for the reasons that I've raised. Because honestly, I think you need to take us serious. And this issue of us all the time coming here, DG, we ask you questions, people turn our questions to be answers instead of giving us direct response. I'm been asked by members to raise this issue sharply, UDM. Because it's your own document. You said you're going to host a colloquium, then you change it to something, and that's not the document that Cabinet approved. And that document, remember, it's on your website. Everybody have got access to it. What are we doing here? I'm trying to understand that. And all the time we ask questions, our questions get evaded. Then proceed. On the list, the status, how many? Then I can allow you to respond.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. And apologies for not responding to in full in terms of your question. Yes, we know the status, although I do not have the list in front of me right now. Some of them are at a research stage, and there is some verification that still needs to be done. In terms of the state plantations ones, those are the ones we have prioritized that they are finalized within this period. So maybe I can request that we provide that table with the list with where each of the status is at, and the one or two that have already been finalized, if that that would be my request. And then in terms of the document, yes, this is a document that we developed as a department in collaboration with our partners. We were involved in the development of the document, and I think, as the DG has indicated, we will then provide a detailed response to the chair's question, so that we make sure that we touch all the issues accordingly. And we do apologize that we have not responded in the way that is acceptable. Thank you very much.
I also raised a question on the disparities of the investment and the jobs. And then what you did as you were responding to my question was just talking and included similar words of the issues that I raised without answering the question. Are you going to respond to that question in writing as well? Because it's very key from where I'm standing. There was no definite answer, DM, and it's a concern.
Chairperson, yes, we are. In terms of what you actually were requesting is the commitment of 24 with a corresponding number of jobs, if I understood you well. And also the fact that now half of it has already been put in as part of investment, yet the jobs are not necessarily corresponding. There's lesser jobs. How are we then going to achieve what was intended? We are going to then respond to that in writing, because possibly the colleagues do not have the actual information and what would have gone into the modeling around informing the jobs vis-a-vis the reality that we are seeing in terms of the actual investment done and the jobs that are there. So we will provide a very clear response to your question, Chair, and apologies for not responding. Thank you.
DM, you want to say something?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I just want to organize myself here. I'm sorry, Chair. I'm still in another corner again, as I have indicated that I'm struggling with the network this side. No, Chair, I think DGG has already, DG, I'm sorry about that, Ms. Chakalala, has already responded on the way forward with regard to your questions that you raised, and also those questions that members has raised. But what I can say is that if the responses that the acting DDG and the team were not satisfactory, because I could hear the chair once say that it was not what the chair was expecting, we can then indeed request for your permission to respond in writing. In closing, Chair, some of the difficult questions that, for instance, you asked us with regard to what is contained in the master plan. That's one of the reasons why then we have decided to get an expertise that is external, in order for us then to be able to have that office which is dedicated only in the implementation of the master plan, of which I think, and when that is done, things will be much better. But of course, the issues that you have raised and said that you don't think that at the stage when the master plan was sent to the cabinet, those issues might not have been included. I will take it upon myself, get a copy that we then made a presentation to the cabinet and see. Chair, you have been a minister. You know how does those things work. And I will go through that document and see whether everything that was approved by the cabinet is still the same things that we are dealing with. But otherwise, Chair, I just want to thank members because I think, as I have said, that the questions that members raise with us, they strengthen this document. Therefore, we'll be in a position next time to make sure that all those things that has been raised here, we pay attention to them. Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thanks to members of Parliament.
I was going to put some more follow-up questions. The reason why I'll do that, Deputy Minister, my questions were all not adequately responded to. Remember, I asked the question, what does this master plan actually mean? I raised a question on that. It was not responded to. Then I think what we'll do, because I see the indication of the other members here, they wanted to raise follow-up questions as well. I'll rephrase my questions in writing and send them. Maybe when they are in a written form, they will be adequately responded to. And any other follow-up questions, and the members will do that. I think you will get those questions through our committee secretary, just to resolve this issue. Then it brings us to the next agenda item. I think it's the planning for we can recuse the officials that are not affected by this so that they can go and work. They must just move out quickly. So, and DG, with this message, we hope when these questions are responded to in writing, they will be adequately responded to. I'm raising this because it's very frustrating. Some of us, we read these documents, we don't sleep, with the view that when we come here, we get answers. And I must make this remark again. Then for somebody to just deviate from the document that has been approved, then you come and tell us things that are not there. You're taking exception to that. And we hope, DG, this will never happen again. Then stick to what you have presented to Cabinet, because like I said, I understand the Cabinet processes as the Deputy Minister has said. You cannot, once the document is approved, when it comes to implementation side. That's why the question that I asked, whether you've done it in-house or somebody did it for you, then you realize this thing. But even if somebody has done it for you, you had the responsibility to check on the accuracy of the information that was there. And then when it was not, you could have followed the process to withdraw those items and then publicize, because that document remained publicized in your website, but now you're doing something different from what the document says. So I was raising this because at some point, DG, this is the frustrations. It's like we're holding this meeting just for malicious compliance. And from where we stand, all of us as public representatives, we see this as an opportunity, as a game changer to improve the lives of our people. And then when officials don't implement what they put on the book, this is because nobody coerces you to put all these targets. You did it out of your own volition, knowingly that these things are implementable. Then when you fail to do the things, then you come and change the language. I think it's totally unacceptable. I think I need to end it here as I excuse the officials. Chileka, can you slide the next agenda item on the screen?
Members, can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Thank you. You will guide me, Chair, as to when you want me to move to the next page.
Yes, I believe you shared this with the members, and the members could have read that. Normally what you're dealing with here is the background and the purpose of the visit. I don't think there's much. You can go to page 2, slide paragraph 2. And then you see on the map, we've highlighted the areas that are actually affected. And then also it deals with the fire distribution and the frequency of occurrence. This is what happened between the period 2003 and 2013. And the red dots on this map, this signifies the proposed public hearing sites, where as the committee we can meet as guided by the fire prevalence. I think this is the area that we feel we need to visit. And then you go to page 3. Page 3, we are dealing with the proposed timelines, including municipalities. The agreement is that we're going to invite all the various spheres of government that are affected by this, and then we're going to hold this in the various municipalities. As you've seen, we'll have to work weekends as well if we want to seriously deal with this. Like, we've managed that we don't touch your constituency days, and then we'll use our Fridays set for committee meeting as part of the public participation. So you can see the dates up to this. The first one, it's Northern Free State. We've set aside 3 days there. Northern Cape, 3 days there. And then in Mpumalanga, 3 days there. Then we also coupled there's also an oversight visit on 3.4. The one that we couldn't do now. Those are the days that we are seeing. We're gonna be there on the 28th to the 29th. And then KwaZulu-Natal, you can see the 3 days there. Maybe it's committee with the way it's put there. That's why you have those dates, Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. Then we do the oversight again when we are there in the province of KZN. You can see that's where we are going to deal with that. Then Limpopo, those are the 3 dates. And then Gauteng, those are the 3 days. And definitely that week is also committee week. Hence you see the Wednesday there and the Thursday, including the Tuesday. Then we also do our oversight when we're on Gauteng. So those oversights that we're supposed to do whenever we in those provinces, like in Mpumalanga, we saw the Kruger one, then the KZN, so that we couple it to that we do the Isimangalisa one, and then in Gauteng, then we can take that chance to also visit the South African Weather Service. Then 12 to 14 August, we're gonna be in the Northwest. Yes, it's committee weekends, you see the Friday. Then the 26th to the 28th of August, we're going to be in the Eastern Cape. Then Friday, the 2nd of September to the 6th of September, we shall be in the Western Cape. So this is the proposed public hearings on the National Fund and Forest Fire Amendment Act. That also encompasses our outstanding oversight visits. Can I hear your comments, colleagues? Over to you. Remove it from the screen, Chileka. Thank you so much. Okay. Any end that want to interact with the presentation? Or you are fine? If you are sorted, you are sorted. Okay. Colleagues, I want to hear you speaking on this matter.
I'm happy with that, Chair.
The only thing in between, we need to find a date for the workshop of the climate change. Chileka, that's the only thing that's outstanding. I'm trying to remind you.
Yes, Chair, it will come with the second term program. We got the focus areas yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair.
Sure. Thank you, Honorable Phillips. Any other comments? I presume you are silenced, then means you are okay. You're all okay. This is how we're going to move. Okay. Under this circumstance, is there anything, the Nairobi thing, the report? Yes. We need to consider this report as the portfolio committee. We met, and this is the report. It's the report of the Portfolio Committee on Environment, Forestry, and Fisheries on the accession of the amended Convention for the Protection, Management, and Development of the Marine and Coastal Environment of the Western Indian Ocean, the so-called Nairobi Convention, tabled in terms of Section 2312 of the Constitution of 1996. The report dated the 25th of March. Then the Portfolio Committee on Environment and Fishery, having considered the request for approval by Parliament of the accession to the amended Convention for the Protection, Management and Development of the Marine and Coastal Environment of the Western Indian Ocean, referred to as Nairobi Convention, referred to the committee in terms of Section 231(2) of the Constitution 1996, recommends that the House approves, there must be an S-letter, the said convention. So the report is going to be considered in the House. Can I get a mover and a seconder for this report to be submitted as it is?
Chair.
Supported. Who's supporting? Honorable Brian is moved. Paulson?
Chair, no, I'm not supporting, Chair. I think we need to engage that report more thoroughly before we just make hash decisions of rubber stamping something.
But you were in that meeting, when we decided on this matter. We considered the report. Maybe let me see the show of hands, those who are for and those who are not. Let's do that. Honorable Weber, what's your take? I'll be recording.
Chair, I agree with Honorable Phillips. Thank you.
So it's Honorable Bryant has recommended his support. Honorable Phillips has recommended his support. Honorable Weber has has also support the thing. Honorable Mbata?
Thank you, Chair. I support the report. Thank you.
And then Honorable Modise? Honorable Modise? You can type in, you had network problems, but you are here in the forum.
Honourable Chair, if I can just come in, please. My hand was up actually before we were asked to agree to the report. I still have some serious reservations about the amount of money that's going to be paid out, or that is possibly to be paid out to our country for projects and how it's going to be accounted for. And then I also have reservations about the payment to belong to this accord, considering that we didn't pay it in the past and then suddenly we could pay it. If we couldn't pay it, then where did the money suddenly come from? So I have some reservations about this report. Thank you, Chair.
Can we be allowed to also request for a debate on the convention so that all those issues can be raised? And then Honorable Mbata, Honorable Gancho.
Thank you, Chair. I support the report, Chair.
Honorable Modise. Honorable Brian, your hand is up again. Is the old one?
No, Chair. I just want to make a comment. I mean, as I understand it, we did interrogate this item at length in a previous portfolio committee meeting.
Yes, on Tuesday.
And can you just confirm with me that this item today is effectively to confirm the discussions that took place on that day? I do think that we did have quite an extensive opportunity to discuss those issues, and I think there was a resolution at the end that there wasn't any objection in that meeting to the report being recommended, unless I misread it. But that was my.
That's exactly
yes.
what.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
So this is effectively just confirming that discussion. Yeah.
Yes, because we need to approve. Yeah, to confirm the minutes. That's what we're doing now, and the report, so that it can go to the House. Okay, so you.
Listen, I have no objection to the tabling of the report.
Yes.
As to how, and as Honourable Phillips has said, as to the way we are going to manage funds accruing as a result of our membership or to this convention. You know, those are things where we have serious reservations.
Okay, can we resolve that by asking for a debate? In fact, there's going to be declarations on the matters. So we adopt the report as long as parties will be given an opportunity to do the declarations and then raise the issues. But these are the matters that we can then, on an ongoing basis, ask the department to come and account to us on those issues.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy with that.
Yes, I'll put it in our agenda so that we get quarterly progress report on this one. I'm trying to harness and address everybody's concerns. Are we fine, colleagues? Yes, we are. So we are done for the day, Chineka?
Yes, Chairperson, we are done. We are done for the day, Chair.
Okay. Whereby your picture, you want to say something?
No, just want to say bye. We finished.
And wish you a very good weekend. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Chair.
Bye-bye.
Video.
Thank you.
Bye, members.